Today I'm going to be talking about spirituality and physical health. Seemingly two separate subjects, but that's only because spirituality and also physical health have been so misunderstood for so long. So the topic is actually spirituality and physical health. I'll be showing the relationship of those two major components of our lives. The name of this show is Living Wisdom, and I'm Patty Paul. Spirituality has been so misunderstood for many, many people, millions and millions of people through the ages. Spirituality has strictly been limited to religion, organized religion. But it's oh so much more. Each of us is a spiritual being who set off on a spiritual journey to reconnect with our source, and also to reconnect with our own personal power and our power to be a co-creator with our origin, with our creators. So we set off on this long, long journey, which for many of us has included the physical world in lifetime after lifetime. Here we find ourselves in a physical lifetime at this present moment. And to understand that the spiritual journey is also a search for more freedom, but freedom with responsibility. Now, of course, the religions that we have created, the religions that we have subscribed to for centuries, have had their own rules and regulations as part of the belief system that each of those religions is. So in that way, we haven't given up our personal freedom, and we have given our power away to those authorities who set the rules and the regulations. There are, of course, the various religious texts that support the major religions. We have the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and in each of those three religions and many of the others, a Father God was created to be the supreme authority. And we have been told and have believed that the Father God was the one who designed our life, who pulls the strings, so to speak, who rewards us when we're good, who punishes us when we're bad. And that has created some confusion in many areas, but also in this area of physical health, because the misconception about physical health is that it's kind of a linear thing. Either you're perfectly healthy, or you're dead, or you're somewhere in between. And physical illness so often has been felt as some sort of punishment from God. You've heard people say, or maybe you've even said it yourself, when some tragic illness or accident, which also is a form of a malfunction in health, when something traumatic has occurred to you or a loved one, perhaps you've thought or heard other people say, how could God do this to me? That's because in those cases we've given our power to this God that we invented, who was supposed to make life perfect for us if we followed those rules and regulations. The truth is, the most pious, the most dedicated religious follower, the one who goes to church not just once a week, but several times a week, maybe several times a day. The one who prays not just on occasion, but dedicated to prayer every single day, there's a part of that person who believes that by almost compulsively following the rules of their spiritual belief, their religious belief, that will somehow buy them a pass out of physical illness or accidents or other trauma in their life. And they often are the most shocked when something actually does happen, and the most confused, because they were being good, just like God said they had to be, and yet, they got punished. What's that about? Well, that is the misunderstanding. That is the failing of understanding that each of us are independent people. We choose what to believe. The choices that we make about our beliefs, if they're more open, if they're more enlightened, more freeing, then responsibility that we take can also include taking responsibility for our physical health. This is a short show, only a half an hour, and so to talk about the components of our spiritual journey, there are too many to include in this short time, but I've picked up 3 of them that I'll talk about. For each person in this lifetime and every other lifetime, we have each chosen 7 focuses for ourselves. And the first 2 focuses are the same for every being. I've written them out on this pad. The focus for every single person is to learn how to consciously create success, consciously being the operative word. The second focus that is the same for every single being is to learn how to have fun. That means at every stage of your life to learn to have fun in a way that is appropriate for that stage of your life. When you're a child, having fun means one thing, playing with dolls, playing in the sandbox. When you're an adolescent, adolescents have a whole different idea of what having fun is. What often happens is as we move into being a grown-up, we still continue to want to have fun the way we did when we were adolescents, and that isn't really appropriate, because to learn how to have fun in a new way that fits you as the adult you are, that is a very learning, a very creative and productive thing to be doing. So focus on consciously creating success, learning to have fun, is part of the spiritual path that each of us is on. The other 5 focuses that I mentioned are individual for each person. And I won't go into the possibility, the range of those, because there's quite a range there. What you create in your life, throughout your life, gives you feedback about what your focuses might be. But for everyone, it has to do with taking your power back so that you can actually be a powerful spiritual being, learning and growing throughout your entire life. Another focus, another component rather, of the spiritual path that each of us is on is this freedom issue, learning to have more and more freedom with responsibility. There are those who seek freedom freedom for themselves, freedom for groups of people, freedom for society in general, but without taking responsibility for the consequences, without taking responsibility for the impact that they'll have. Aliveness, that's another common component for each of us on our spiritual path. Aliveness, that curiosity, that energy, that motivation for learning more and more about who you are, about what it is to be a human being, about how to heal yourself, how to heal the past, so that through healing the past, the emotional connection to the past, we can have more personal freedom. Freedom to focus on the future. And with aliveness, aliveness that is an internal youthfulness and an eternal youthfulness. These three components that are part of our common spiritual path and our individual spiritual path take us into a future that we'll create for ourselves, letting go of the doom and gloom predictions that come from all sources, revelations in the Bible. Doom and gloom, that's a belief if you want to hold it, but you don't have to hold on to that kind of belief in those dire predictions for humanity. So it's about becoming more enlightened, about seeing yourself as a spiritual being, about understanding the spiritual path that you're on. I wrote a book by the title of A New Spirituality Beyond Religion. This book is available in libraries and other places. And in my book, I talk in more detail about spirituality and the components, the energies that comprise spirituality. I talk in detail about how each person literally creates their own reality in this illusion that we call the physical world. Again, in this short time, I don't have time to go into those details, but if you're interested, you can read about it in my book, A New Spirituality. On the second page of this pad, I've written a few of the important things to know about physical health and illness, keeping in mind that we each are a spiritual being on this spiritual path. When we experience some sort of physical illness, physical ailment, and that also would include an accident that affects our physical health, stumbling and breaking a toe, skiing, falling, breaking a leg, accidents, except there are no accidents. To understand that's part of this energy or this compilation of energies that is physical health. Illness, accidents are messages back to us about where we are on our spiritual path. If we have an illness or an accident or some sort of ailment in that sense, one of the messages is that we are suffering from a disorientation on our spiritual path, a disorientation from the focuses that we chose. From the focuses, the two that are the same for each of us, to learn how to consciously create success, to learn how to have fun in new ways as we grow, as we evolve. And then for each of us, the 5 other focuses that we have selected for ourselves in a lifetime, which can be discovered. So we have, as we go along our way, somehow we get disoriented. For many people, they don't even know about these focuses because they've never heard it before. There are hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands, of self-help books, especially those that have been written from the, let's say, late 60s, early 70s, about the human potential, about how to take your power back. And a lot of people read those books, and so they've had sort of a opening, in the sense, opening to the understanding that life is a lot more than what we were taught in the past. The field of psychology, lots of people, including myself, have always had this interest in the psychology of human behavior, the psychology of why we are as individuals. And so there's been a great body of information in psychology that has helped give us the clues. So there have been these sources for a long time to find out more about ourselves. There are some people to this day who absolutely think psychology, psychiatry, all of the mental health disciplines are just a bunch of baloney. There are those who ridicule the self-help materials, the books, the videotapes, all of the teachers, the information, ridicule them as New Age babble. That is like dismissing or cutting yourself off from learning more about yourself. That would be disorientation in a major way. But there's always more to learn about yourself, more to learn about human beings, more to learn about the relationship between you and others in your life. Disorientation, one of the components of this illness/health energy. Alienation is another one. Alienation from our search for freedom. Each of us is a spark of consciousness from the mind of God. Not the Father God, not the patriarchal God, not the chauvinist God that's been invented and written about, that's part of organized religion, but the true God, which is an unconditionally loving God. A God who, as any wise parent, allows their offspring to find their own way, to learn and grow and become independent. And with that independence, freedom. And with that freedom, responsibility. Alienation from the freedom and the aliveness that is that spark of consciousness, that spark of energy called the Spirit, and that's our connection to the unconditionally loving God. But in the higher truth of creation, there is a goddess as well. A goddess who we turned our back on because she sure didn't fit into this patriarchal, chauvinistic mindset that we've had in place for several thousand years. But the goddess exists. The goddess, unconditionally loving goddess, is a co-creator with God. And each of us has not only this spark of aliveness, this spark of intellect from the mind of God that's called spirit, but we also have a soul. Each of us has a soul, and that is our connection to the goddess. In our world and in our lives, we have been so alienated from the higher truth about our creators, that they are unconditionally loving, and that has impacted the amount of freedom that we have created in our lives. We have created authorities who tell us what to do and in return take care of us. The Father God, the government, the military, your local politicians, whoever you see as the authorities, the authority figures. Another component of this energy of illness is disorder, a disorder of the priorities that we've set for our lives. Now, it's true, many who are unaware of these higher truths haven't really set any priorities in their life except perhaps to earn as much money as they possibly can, get through life as best they can, survive for as long as they can, and retire maybe when they're 65, 70. But the real priorities in life, again, the spiritual connection, the spiritual reconnection, and the freedom, and also priorities that we set for ourselves in the form of principles to live by, ideals to shoot for, ideals like never intentionally hurting another. Instead of relying on rules that have been handed to us by the authority figures, rules like the Ten Commandments, for instance, that one certainly could be changed to or replaced by the ideal that we set for ourselves, that we choose for ourselves, to never intentionally hurt another. Another ideal that each one of us might choose is total honesty. And then every single day, as we go through our day, as we live our life, to make choices and decisions that comply, that flow toward that ideal of total honesty. What that means, honesty, means being brutally honest with yourself. That means telling yourself the truth about the thoughts you're thinking, about the judgments you're making about other people, the criticisms that you're making about trying to be a perfectionist, which is a blockage to spiritual growth, and being tactfully honest with other people, keeping in mind that you don't want to intentionally hurt another. Health is a flowing, actually a collection of flowing energies. It's expansive, it's kind of abstract, there's an ebb and flow. There's no such thing as perfect health, and there's no such thing as physical immortality, because in our physical world, the way we've set it up, our physical body is like a vehicle, a vessel that eventually is going to wear out. Now, when you have the aliveness, when you're actively on your spiritual path, seeking more freedom, taking more power back, having more responsibility, and knowing that you're creating your life, you can extend your life for a lot longer than the current average length of longevity. Maybe 150 years, maybe 200 years. Those are possibilities. It's not chiseled in stone that your body has to decay and deteriorate by the time you're 80 or 90. That's part of the belief system. You can unplug yourself from those beliefs easily. But eventually, because we're seeking more and more freedom, we're going to want to leave behind the physical body and the physical world because there are inherent limitations here. The immortality that we have is that the spirit and soul that we are, the being that we are, can live forever. In this short time, I hope that I've given you perhaps some new things to think about. I want to thank you for your attention. Once again, you've been watching Living Wisdom, and this is Patty Paul saying goodbye until the next time.